sort of not issues, but I thought, you know, you seem to get the best sounds out of amps that didn't channel switch. It'd be like you have your dedicated clean amp, your dedicated dirty amp. At least up till that time, that's the way I felt. And John told me, you know, I think I can make you happy with a channel switching amp. And I liked the sound of that because I was like, well, if that's possible, then I could simplify my rig and not be carting so much stuff around all the time. So he made me this amp, and I just loved it. And long story short, that's the one that has been the pt100 for the last few years that you probably know and are familiar with. So I was out on the road a lot, and I would come back sometimes on breaks and stuff and bring the amp in and say, what if we tried like a little more of this, or it had a little less of that, or, you know, and he'd make these tweaks, some of which got incorporated into that amp, the original pt100. And at some point we just sort of thought, you know, maybe some of this new stuff that we're trying, we should just keep these mods and different features and stuff, and at some point we'll introduce a brand new amp. So that's where we're at now. That's what you see here. You know, we had talked about maybe switching up the design, doing some different things cosmetically, maybe trying it to, you know, because the tubes go down in the back of the amp, the chassis on the top. We tried maybe thinking about, you know, maybe designing something else in that regard. But what happened was I had my road amp that we would make these tweaks on, and it started sounding, you know, I mean, it always sounded great, but it was just sounding so good that it was like, you know, if we mess with that design too much, you don't know what you're going to end up with, and maybe you're back at square one and you need to, you know, rethink things. So we thought, why don't we just, you know, work with what we've got here. So the one that you see underneath here with all the, it's got marks all over the front of it, yellow marks and stuff. That amp's been all over the world, and that's my kind of Frankenstein road amp. And that is the one that we based all the new stuff off of, and you're seeing it up here in this head. So it's a little bit cosmetically different. We've made some nice tweaks, I think, and stuff. And but what's different about it feature-wise? Well, a whole lot actually. Number one, it's got MIDI now, so it's really cool because you've got this great new foot switch that comes with the amp that's programmable. And so that's really cool, or you can use it with a MIDI switcher, and so the switching is really nice. But sound-wise, that's the nuts and bolts that I really want to get to. We made some really killer tweaks. First of all, so let's say the output transformer, let's talk about that. John made this amazing transformer switcher, so you could actually have two output transformers outside of the chassis of the amp and flip between them on the fly and listen to the sound of different output transformers. And that was so cool because it's like, I don't think anybody's ever made one of those before. Your transformer switcher. Gee, there he is right there. He made a transformer switcher. He's very smart. So it was really cool to hear, you know, wow, it's incredible. We can try this one and this one. We had, I don't know, probably like 6 or something that we checked out, and we ended up with this really, really great one that's pretty much old sort of plexi, like really early 67 plexi spec output transformer. And so that was a change. New boost. There's a brand new boost in the amp. It's a FET boost, and it's in a totally different place in the circuit than what we had before. And John was working on it. He was working on an amp for somebody, and he said, hey, I built this new boost into this amp. You gotta hear it, it's awesome. And there used to be maybe some sort of stigma, like, oh, if it's not all tube, then it's, you know, but I think those days are gone. Everybody uses pedals and stuff like that to boost their amp, and this FET boost that's in the amp is just, I mean, it's so organic. It sounds better than any pedal ever could. Something about it that, and John described to me because it's running off the high voltage in the amplifier, so it's like tons of headroom, and just stays really tight and whatnot while boosting the amp. So I'll get to that actually in a second. I'll show you what it sounds like. The circuit of both channels has changed just as we sort of evolved the amp over the years and came up with different ideas. I'd ask for a little more of this, a little more of that. Maybe make the amp, you know, a little friendlier with different types of speakers, different types of cabinets, a little more versatile. And so we did all these great things and put them all into the amp. And just refined it to the point where I just think it sounds better than any channel switching amp. You know, basically everybody's always like, well, how do I get the American style clean and the British style dirt in an amp, right? And it's tough because, you know, to get it all under one hood, it's difficult. And I feel like this one does that better than anything else that's out there. It really is the answer. You know, I guess you guys want to hear how it sounds, because that's the main thing, right? That's the crunch channel. And channel 1, you're still going to have that beautiful, but like I say, we made some tweaks, but it's still that beautiful OD style clean that you're familiar with. So usually I set up my clean channel so it's breaking up a bit with the humbucker, clean with the single coil, that kind of thing. So, but you can get it totally. You over there, Chris? Is it, what's it on, about 5 right now or something? Yeah, so if you bring it down to like 3 or something on the, you know, if I switch this bridge pickup into parallel and... It'll clean right up. And then, of course, you still got, we've relabeled the switch on the front crunch now. So if you kick that in for a second, you've got, you know, a separate boost that's on just for channel 1. So that's very cool. So, okay, so switching back over to channel 2. You'll notice that it's extremely tight and extremely, you know, it's got a lot of punch, but it's not thin, you know, because a lot of times what happens is there's this balance between bass in an amp and it getting woofy or woolly and kind of loose sounding. I feel like we struck on this magic balance of, like, you know, getting that right. So, you know, vintage guys are gonna, you know, feel like, wow, it sounds like a great old Plexi. It's got that magic, you know, and that give and that sponge, but it's still plenty tight enough for a metal player to play through, I think. So it's really versatile. Still got a bright switch on channel 2 as well, which is really cool. It's subtle, but it's nice. Kick that in. Okay, so you can get a little more aggressive, depending on what speakers you're using and whatnot. And but like I was saying earlier, I really wanted to make sure this amp was friendly with different types of cabinets. So, you know, if you're a V30 guy or a greenback guy, you know, the treble pot's incredible. Between about 4 and 6.5, you can get it in the zone with almost any cabinet, I find. So it's just really, really nice. I mean, once I found my settings that I like with it, I've had, you know, my Frankenstein head there, I've had it on the road and used in every single venue I go to. I never have a problem dialing the amp in with this, you know, get the sound check, and within 30 seconds, it's just sounding great with a little tweak of the treble pot, bright rooms, dark rooms. It's just super versatile. Okay, so the boost. Check this out. So just adds an extra layer of gain on top of that crunch sound, and stays tight and stays responsive, and doesn't respond at all like a pedal or anything like that. It just sounds like an organic, you know, part of the circuit of the amp. You know, a lot of times if you use a pedal in front of an amp to boost it, I find when you play on the neck pickup and get up on the low strings, it'll sort of go and sort of like sound like, you know, and this doesn't do that at all. So I don't know how much better modded Brit kind of sound anybody needs than that. I don't know, I'm totally sold. I think it sounds great. So I'm really stoked about the amp. Now, I should mention the cabinet too, because we've got a matching cabinet that you're hearing. And We designed it basically to have all the punch and impact of a 412, but obviously it's a 212. It's nice and small. Listened to a whole bunch of speakers in it and tried cabinets of different sizes and things like that, and settled on this one. It's got great low end girth and a lot of impact. And the speakers that we went with are the Celestion Heritage H75 creamback style speaker. And we were listening to it, comparing all these different speakers and blends of speakers and all kinds of stuff. And when we heard this cabinet with those speakers, it would, compare it to the 412 that John's got in his office, which has nice old greenbacks in it and stuff. And it had all the impacted volume of the 412 with the greenbacks in a much smaller portable form factor. You're not giving up anything in terms of impact and punch and stuff. So we're like, yeah, that's it. Let's go with the creamback. And I really like the speakers actually on the clean channel too. They sound great for clean. I've always been a greenback guy, but these H-magnet style speakers, they arguably give you maybe a nicer clean tone, a little more sparkle on top. So it's cool. We got matching set of head and cabinet, and it's all very exciting for me. And I hope everybody gets to play through the amp and digs it as much as I do, because I think it's just a really special amplifier. So thank you, John, for working with me on it as well. It's been a labor of love and a lot of driving out to Lake Elsinore, but it's a blast. It's always fun. I always look forward to coming out here and doing what we do. So thanks for checking out the pt100 Signature Edition.
Let's give everybody